What is up, everyone? Man, there's so much going on in this ecosystem. The announcement for the new subDAO, proposal for a new subDAO has been made for Helium, and thought it'd be a great time with their. They didn't quite say exactly when they announced the subDAO, like they did a little precursor announcement, and they said that there's subDAOs coming, like proposals for more than one. So that got me thinking, and I love to speculate, if not a little recklessly. So a big caveat to this entire video is that there's a lot of speculation in here. Definitely want you to take it with a grain of salt. Some of this stuff, as far as like, well, it's probably in the know, right? I do a lot of research and paying attention and participating in community dialogue and stuff on multiple discords and stuff. So this is like a combination of whatever's going on in my brain and a plinko of this new information of subDAOs to all of those outcomes. So now, of all these projects, I think only one or two I might have some amount of insider information, but by and large, the request made of with these entities is that like it's need to know, and most of the time I don't need to know. But just in the little instance of that something slips, then they have that in place. So I have made I'm very careful in those specific instances to not let anything go that I don't know, or that more specifically, if someone else has made this assumption or thrown this out as an idea publicly, then it's a little bit more okay to suggest, like, hey, this is just something I ran across. It sounds good. Again, I'm not going to confirm or deny anything, but these things sound pretty good, and so I'm interested, right? So there's the little caveat there. Before I get into the mess, because it's, man, I could talk at length for what I tried to do to get this information together, but I do want to throw out an opportunity to meet with yours truly. If you are in the Chicago area in July 18th, you will be able to meet me and many others in the Helium ecosystem at the Helium mobile event that's happening there in Chicago. I'll put the link in the description below, which always reminds me to remind you to like and subscribe, share this video, and tell your friends about it, because that's how we grow community. That's how we get good ideas, and may the best idea win, right? So without further ado, that's what we're going to cover this content. And like I said, it's a lot of information. I did use ChatGPT to generate some of this, so you're going to be able to see. It's basically, I'm just like, give me a synopsis for each of these projects. I really don't even care like if it was 100% correct. It was just a couple words on screen. If you've never heard about it, it might actually sound okay, but I'm not going to read this by any means either. I tried to get ChatGPT to also generate me a PowerPoint, and it tried once, and then I asked it to try again, and it failed miserably, and I was like, yeah, I can't do that, I'm sorry. So look, hey, oh yeah, that reminds me, if you want this and many other swag that are leftovers from what the Helium Foundation sent for a Minneapolis meetup, you can come to that event in Chicago. So that's that. All right, let's share the screen here. All right, now we're rolling on that. So this is a possible, and I put, these are in sort of an order. I tried to do a matrix for specific criterion that to rank like why I thought that these possible projects were worth consideration for subDAOs. But also in this justification column, I said this might be blatant. Like this may not happen at all. So the first one that came up was XNOT, and this probably wouldn't have been a consideration like, I don't know, even a week ago, but XNOT just announced that they are migrating to Solana, which is like really big information. Now, that doesn't implicitly mean that they're going to become a subDAO for Helium. Helium Mobile and XNet very much are competing, but it's not exactly competing. They support each other. So I promised myself I would not read these directly, but there are some things that help like remind me, and also, but I'm gonna let you read it in the interest of time. I hope to be through this. I'm already 5 minutes in and need to get through this quickly. DY cats. Okay, so I'm a DY cat holder for whatever information that's worth. But I do like this this kind of formation of individuals. I like my early days. If you remember, I was very much in the Emirate community, and I really liked the idea of this fleet company, and I even did my own little fleet program with the People's Hotspot. And so this idea of a group, an entity, owning hotspots and then sharing the mining proceeds in a treasury is a cool idea. And then there's like, okay, well, how can you get sort of community vibes and kickbacks and and be able to pivot quickly and scale quickly. So there's like a lot of things about this that really interest me. And there's this whole thing about deploying. Because if the cost is very prohibitive on gear, you need very knowledgeable people to deploy that gear. You want to deploy it very quickly and in the right places. You don't want it to be gained, but also you need trusting people out there if you're going to have blockchain activities associated with it that aren't going to undermine the token, or at least maybe they're a little bit like gray hattish and like say, hey, this is a weakness if we're trying to onboard things quickly in this ecosystem. So I really like this for right now. I'm supporting the community and kind of talking about it. So check out DY Cats. Obviously, the energy that announcement was made by Srcful that they are submitting a proposal to become a Helium subDAO. I'm just excited about this space because I've always liked Helium, and this was an interesting pick. If you would have asked me to do something like this, if you would have just said Helium's going to go with more than one subDAO, what are you going to go with? I would have never picked energy. So this was a very big surprise for me. As it's a surprise for me, dang it, I can't get this column to go very well. Crap. Anyways, all right. So for the energy, I spent a little time reading and listening to spaces already, and I might be confusing it as, well, right now it's not a peer-to-peer energy sharing network. That might be the case in the future. I guess on their roadmap somewhere is like a battery pack or a power wall type idea where you could potentially get that in the future. But that's not right now. Right now is basically just like this usage data, and the data would be transmitted by through potentially the Helium IoT network. And that was like part of the drive. But there's this edge there that I think is common in a lot of these, is just because it uses the IoT network doesn't mean it needs to be a subDAO, which is a very legitimate argument and should have a place at that discussion table. So interesting stuff. I'm not going to dive into it too much because I just want to stay at a very surface level and then really turn this back to y'all and say, what more do you want to hear on? What do you like? What you didn't like? What did you disagree with? And that kind of thing. So feel free to let discussion ensue. Oh, there, finally I figured out how to work Excel. Imagine that. All right, next is WeatherXM. WeatherXM is very, very popular amongst the deep-in community. It kind of seems niche a little bit because it's just a weather network. Everybody has thermometers. Everybody has the, yada yada. But the idea that this is using the Helium IoT network, at least in part, is something that people are really liking. It's a very easy way to get your first sensor, because there's a very easy way to get to put the sensor out there, and I have a video on that. And then you can get the data off of your unit and track historically. Oh, gee, how much rain did I get last night? And you'd be able to check that. What time was that? Did that storm roll through? Or what's the wind forecast? You can see the ups and downs of it. So I won't go into more detail about explaining Weather XM, but this idea of like, well, great, it utilizes the Helium IoT side, but is it really that important of a contributor to the flywheel? Maybe not. But maybe later down the line, if energy comes on, if Srcful comes on, then we might see something like that be a little bit more important or used. But even then, does it need to be a subDAO? And what I'm seeing is like, this really doesn't fit. But I remain to be surprised with all of these. All right, next is mappers. So mappers was an interesting one. There's so many projects out there that are doing some sort of mapping, from mapping of roads to mapping of airspace to tracking, mapping planes in the sky. Like there's just all these kinds of mapping things, and like location is really important. Even satellite acquisition we'll talk about in a little bit. So all of these things, like if we're going to add if we have AI and we want it to meet with this real world, then there's got to be some way of getting that data and giving it to AI. And so these mappers are an excellent way to do it. So maybe a mapping DAO might be useful, especially, even related to the energy. It's like, where are these shared battery packs across the grid, placed? And if they move around, all of a sudden, if that thing is in a car, well, then that car can move around and needs to be charged in different locations. So you can anticipate based on traffic patterns and all this stuff about the flow of energy and the highly variable nature of energy and where it can be introduced and taken from the grid, if it's transportable like that. So mapping, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself again. I'm so excited for this space and on all these things. I hope you catch a little bit of this excitement too. All right, next is Ambient, or formerly known as Planet Watch. If you didn't know, Planet Watch was an environmental monitoring sensor solution. They use IoT sensors that aren't part of the Helium ecosystem yet. I'm crossing my fingers, then hoping that they eventually do. Worst case, we'd have to get new sensors. I hope that that's not the case, though. But it would be really cool to set the mark and in the future use Helium IoT to transfer that data. But anyways, you could do this global network of environment monitoring. And, well, Planet Watch, the intention wasn't as successful as they liked it to be. So they are, Ambient basically bought all the sensors from Planet Watch. And I guess Planet Watch is still in existence or something like that. But Ambient is the new company, and there's going to be a new token as well. So, little side blurb there. A lot of these sidebars that we got to go on if you aren't paying attention, and there's a lot to pay attention to. Again, this is the plinko of my brain in this deep in space. So there's no short-term economic contribution to the flywheel from Ambient's perspective that I know right now, but definitely something that was thrown out there. Next one is again, this was a hopeful, like really, very, very hopeful in the long past. I had seen Akash, they did a collaboration of running I think it was a validator on Akash a long time ago, and they did an instruction thing. I was very interested in that. And then recently, SenseCamp announced that Flux nodes were going to be able to be ran on their hardware. So that was interesting as well. So, well, then there's this now new partnership between Flux and Akash. Even though they have their own separate projects, they're going to, if I understood it right, share hardware, or like they could list hardware in each other's tools or something like that, which is cool. So Flux was a little bit closer to the Helium space, while Akash is, I think, in the Cosmos ecosystem. So interesting things. So there's lots of these decentralized cloud computing projects out there, and so this is just something, again, reverberating from that deep in Helium space of like people who get together, talk to each other, and these ideas mull around. So probably not going to be a subDAO as of yet, but not counting it out for permanently. Obviously, there was very much application of when we were running validators, and that they could be ran on Akash. So cool thing there. Next one is voting. Oops. Voting. So voting caught the attention of a lot of people for governance, like rolling a governance solution. It's like, how do you do this? And there are, well, I'm not as aware of like a voting technology or a voting project out there. The intention really is of the Helium ecosystem to give voice to all the voices present in a system. And, with the way that they do staking to presenting that vote and getting feedback quickly, and their whole HIP process. So the cool thing is that whole system is open source. And, there's definite hope that potentially, like, you could make very tamper-proof. Again, this is hoping right now. But hope that it's tamper-proof elections, or even just like, even if you're just running a DAO and you just need a governance tool, that you could just open source that. But even having an IoT sensor to do elections, and that would be really neat. But again, I'm getting too far ahead. Just sticking with the open source tool is that that's available and can be used by other projects in the system, or in many other systems. It's open source, so use it at your desire. Probably not a subDAO at this point, but definitely a cool thing out there. The next couple projects I kind of lumped in, like, so it's always been weird because Helium has had this mobile token, but then there's like Wi-Fi, and like you tend to get Wi-Fi and mobile. You think of them as different things, but then there's one mobile token. But then you access Wi-Fi, but you can use your mobile plan on Wi-Fi. And so a lot of ISPs or cellular providers are starting to do this and provide cellular connectivity through Wi-Fi. So it really blurs that line. Well, then if you're not even talking about cellular connectivity, but just connectivity of your computer in general, there's a couple different projects out there to provide this connectivity anywhere and everywhere, and really crowdsource the availability of the internet to everywhere, and make it accessible to everyone. And so there's the projects here are Waymo and Wi-Fi DAO that have been in this space and sharing about interesting applications. Side note, there was some really interesting community engagement and knowledge sharing or creating tools with Waymo that was, I think, developed in the Algorand system. And it's basically just like anything from social media engagement and making sure that you're following these sources of information, to actually contributing to, like, I need to take a class on a certain thing, and being educated on a project, which is really cool as well. So sidebar over. So Wi-Fi DAO, interestingly enough about that, they were interested in becoming a Helium subDAO a long time ago, and there were conversations, but it I can't remember exactly why things just fell through, but it's still interesting, and there's still I know that there's a lot of value behind value alignment with what Wi-Fi DAO is doing, and the people amongst the Helium or DeepIn community. So storage, I won't spend a lot of time on this at all. It's much like Flux and Akash. I think Arweave is one that has been mentioned in the Helium ecosystem the most so far. But that's storage. Decentralized storage is they're kind of, once you got decentralized computing, then storage comes along with it as well. It's not even chicken and egg. It's like whatever. Next is GeoNet. So this seems like a very niche fit, but I put a bunch of ideas in here that still make me, to use the phrase, bullish or interested in what they're doing. There's a lot of intricacies and just alignment for how it could contribute, maybe when other things start happening. But the project can definitely still exist and not need to be a subDAO either. So then maybe this is more like the WeatherXM and Ambient. No, let's just see how that goes. Still interested in it. I do not have a GeoNet. I would like one. I just haven't gotten one yet. HiveMapper. Oh man, HiveMapper has been. I've never gotten into HiveMapper either, but the community is very much in favor of what's going on in there. And if you fast forward, that if connectivity and bandwidth was as ubiquitous as IoT is for, say, WeatherXM, then this actually can push the envelope for a lot of projects out there. So another reason to be very interested in Helium Mobile and this 5G connectivity being advanced, because if you got SIM cards, you can throw them in any of these potential devices that have SIM card slots and have that connectivity that we're building out. And very, very excited about that space, that potential. Okay, next is drones. Again, like HiveMapper and things that need a SIM, move around, you're going to need to track those drones and track what they do, all that kind of stuff. I did include a little bit of a, if you want to say, alpha. And this isn't even this is me, again, Plinko things, is that there's an application that only will use your cell phone to monitor, and you get rewarded in crypto. And that project is called Silencio, and it monitors ambient noise and noise pollution. And I'm like, why don't they have a sensor for it? Well, as much as I can guess at this point, the only inference I can do is that, well, what if the only people who cared about, or the only people who cared about the noise was people? Then it makes sense to mine on the phone, because that's the immediate thing. Like, if you're going to complain about something, you're going to complain on your phone about it. So maybe that's it. I don't know. But drones as a tech is interesting. Again, they could utilize the Helium network, but is it really a way that you want to get that flywheel spinning more? Maybe not yet. No subDAO yet, but definitely not out of the picture, and definitely a relevant player in the space. I mentioned Dronedek in there too. They have come in on a couple of calls. Starlink. Hopefully you guys don't yell at me for mentioning Starlink, but it is a potential thing. This is very much part of my the most gushiest of excitement that I could use, in that if we could drop connectivity anywhere in the world, this has a lot of implications with remote work and housing crisis. Think of homesteaders back in when America was founded, or very soon after, as new states became states. There could be this like kind of like a different kind of who is John Galt moment, or movement, where people are just relocating to new communities, and it's very interesting as to what that could bring for things. So but again, does it need a subDAO? Probably not at this point. It can just execute on its own. Next, DIMO. DIMO is another project out there that DIMO is huge fans of Helium, and originally they didn't have the IoT connectivity, but their newest I don't even want to say sensor, but yeah, sure. The DIMO macaron is a very small device that plugs into your car and transmits the information about your car over the Helium network. So then again, it's like that WeatherXM device that uses the IoT side. So again, does it need to be a subDAO? Probably not. There's not a lot of economic incentive to the flywheel, but who knows, right? I remain open to be surprised in this. Next project is getgrass. So this one has been interesting. I didn't quite get it at the beginning, and it took a lot of times of like trying to understand it. And I still say that I don't know if I understand it fully. Even ChatGPT got that one totally wrong. So I had to edit it a little bit there. But the idea of this underutilized bandwidth being utilized by someone else and reselling that bandwidth has value. I mean, that could bring a lot of bandwidth concerns down, or costs down for people if they're trying to get that extra bandwidth. And if I'm overpaying for bandwidth, if I take maybe some older people who just watch TV, like over-the-air TV, and don't do streaming, well, they probably have, but they still like send and receive emails or something like that. Well, that's the kind of case that maybe that could be tapped here, that there could be a treasure trove of value in that bandwidth to be utilized and resold. So there's still some implications that maybe not a subDAO yet, but it might have relation in that flywheel. So I wouldn't count it out yet. DVPN. So if you don't know what that is, wow. Every corporate job uses a VPN that I know of. So especially if you're working, if you've gotten through COVID and you don't know what a VPN is, oh my goodness, congrats. So there's some reasons where I think that this is useful, and I think it will become ubiquitous, and whether it's VPN or DVPN services, still definitely useful. Should it be a subDAO though? I don't think so. Not yet anyways. But worth mentioning because the community keeps mentioning these projects. So they're actually Boring Protocol submitted a proposal to become a subDAO a while back, and then I don't know if they rescinded that, or I think it was with the market stuff too. The way it went down is the tokens across the whole ecosystem went down. I think it was just wasn't something that they wanted to pursue at that time. So, but not counting it out yet. Teleport and Waymo, if you didn't know, ride sharing, Uber, Lyft, all that kind of stuff. Teleport actually just did a demo of their technology and paid for ride sharing on chain, which was really interesting. So I think I spoiled a little bit of my excitement here earlier in talking about this synergy with energy, or Srcful. Is like if these electric vehicles are going all around and they need to charge, but then they could autonomously drive themselves to where they need to get charged, and autonomously take them to provide rides for people and make money while you sleep for people who own those assets. This is or even DAOs that own this asset is a very interesting idea. So maybe not a subDAO yet, but when you get into things like the scaling of like DYCats and stuff of deploying, like you start to think about what could we deploy? Well, this would be an interesting application of something as such. Yeah. So maybe that's some alpha there. I don't know. All right, next is just blockchains. Like there's even more blockchains coming out that I can't even list them all, and from L1 to L2. So the one thing is, like, I got in here is if like DeepIn and Helium are synonymous, then really anything tagging themselves to this Helium ecosystem is going to go up with this balloon. So I really think that it's just interesting of all the blockchain applications out there, AI layers, data layers, and all this type of stuff that is just really interesting. So more to think about there. I didn't put any blockchains specifically out there. If you think that there are blockchains relevant in this discussion, put it down in the comments. All right, next. Ooh, we're almost done. Fiber. Early in the discussion, as so appropriately 5G came up in the Helium ecosystem, then they talked about one day, it was like whimsically, fiber DAOs might come into existence, where they were putting that in. But I've also seen, like backhauls be, suggested as Starlink or lasers or millimeter wave connections. So I say fiber, but it could mean any type of connectivity between points that are a little bit more difficult to connect to get that backhaul, and not just satellite backhaul either. All right, last one. Y'all might laugh at this, but AI. Oh yeah. Well, what do you mean? Well, you're just putting that in there because it's fun, and probably are you trying to get the algorithm to pick up on your video. Not that intentional. There are a lot of influencers and of course VC people that are sharing ideas about AI, and even AI that's, well, maybe I'll put it as I did a little bit more eloquently as the text is, if DC is data credits, are Helium data credits, is synonymous with data transfer, and the utility of this DC burning is for useful data, then that data could be used and handed over to an AI in some cases. And the idea is securely, right? And so there's a lot of applications that I put in there that I won't go over. But it's, again, not that direct contributor to the flywheel, but definitely like present in the conversation, and has a staked interest in the success of Helium. I'm almost speaking like AI. It has an ethos or a intention in this space. But if we're supporting that and investing in AI, again, this is another reason why I'm just all up in the Helium and DeepIn space, and I just love it. So all that said, there are probably a ton of other ideas, and I could have gotten a lot of things wrong. But what I would recommend is dropping those comments down. Tell me what you think. Where do you think I was wrong? Where do you think I was right? What just excites you about this? As we start back up this content creation engine, I'm sure we're going, when the levers get switched and the funding comes through for all the new miners that we're going to get, and projects that are going to come out, that's all coming. So this will help you seek out which projects you're going to be investing your time in, and hopefully as well as sharing that back with me so that I can give you the content that you like, and also draw attention to the things that really matter in this space. So hope you've enjoyed this video, and do like and subscribe and share it with your friends. I welcome any feedback, good, bad, ugly. Here for it. So appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Carpe Tempestus, everyone.